Oxford Dictionary defines a professional as a person, such as a medical doctor, having an occupation that requires special training, an expert player who gives instruction in a game, for example, a golf professional, or applied to any person, such as a professional cricketer, who engages in an activity as his or her means of livelihood, which is generally followed as a pastime.
All right, where do we take that?
Well, I mean, you had a specific topic that you wanted to apply this to.
Yeah. Like, what is today's definition of a professional gamer? I mean, what is a professional gamer, and what do we perceive? What does the general public perceive as a professional gamer? I think today's subject, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about it in the context of video games. We'll probably go over the versions of what's a professional video gamer, a professional Warhammer player, tabletop mini war games. Maybe even delve into your favorite subject, the professional RPG or tabletop role-playing game. Critical Role and such. So what do you think about that today, Mr. Javan?
Well, I'll kick it off.
All right. Well, let's start at the top. We'll save the most controversial stuff for the end.
I'm just gonna make a general statement.
Yeah, let's do it.
I think I like the third definition the most in this context of someone who does it for their livelihood.
Right.
I am a professional Counter-Strike player. I spend my job, my 8-hour-a-day, 40-hour-a-week, whatever job. This isn't a game I play just for fun. This is my livelihood.
Right.
I travel to tournaments. I try to win tournaments. It's like the professional poker player.
Right.
Professional poker player is like the prime example to me of a professional gamer.
I can't argue that.
Because their job, full time, is to play poker, get money, put money back in, however they do it. But that is their income.
Right. That I can't argue that.
And to me, that should be the baseline of what like a professional is.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think there's a lot to be said about professional gaming. I think your traditional professional gamer would be what everybody thinks is a gamer. At least for most of our history of our country would be sports such as football, baseball, hockey, basketball. Mm-hmm. Those are all games. And I think society in general has forgot they're just games. That's literally the base of what they are. They're games.
Yeah.
Where people go out, they take something they love, and they found a way to make money with it, right? In a sport-like fashion, which can be a game. Actually, most sports are games in the end.
I think sport and game are
pretty much
like the same.
Kind of go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
But then we move into modern era, and I think that the NFL and all these, the NBA, the Major League Baseball, I think they're all starting to feel the crunch. I think their viewership's going down. I think that they're not making as much money as they used to. Hence why when you go to a game in live, you're spending $20 on a hot dog now instead of $1. I think that.
Well, that specifically goes into a whole another can of worms that doesn't even like.
But right. But I think part of that, the reason I'm even bringing this up is that there's a whole new genre of professional gamer now, and that's kind of what we're going to be talking about.
Right.
Is our long-term, or our conversation is going to be about, not about the professional sports player. We're going to be talking about the professional gamer in the context of our hobbies in our
specific thing. And I should preface this by saying too, before we like really dive in, I think they're two completely separate groups. I don't think like there's some crossover between them.
Right.
But I don't think like people are leaving MLB to watch Dota. I don't think that's happening.
I actually think it is. I'm on the other foot, and the reason is might as well get into it.
Yeah.
The reason I think part of it, not necessarily Dota, okay, but I think that professional football specifically is losing things to Madden. I mean, I honestly do. Because, one, the people who play Madden can understand it better when they're watching somebody else play the game. It's like when you sit down and watch somebody play a complicated video game, and you've played that game before, you totally get it. It's like watching a Dota tournament. I can't watch a Dota tournament. I know nothing about Dota. I mean, I know what it is. I know I've seen it, but to me, it's just no excitement at all, right? But somebody that's played Dota, you for instance, you might be able to watch the Dota championships and just go, that was, you get all sweaty and gross and think, holy God, that was just great, you know?
And okay, so like my counterpoint here is like kind of what you just said, like how complicated like the video games and like chess is another great example. Chess is this thing that like every once in a while someone watches it, like it gets in the public eye and people are like, ooh, and then it's like people are like, oh wait, no, this is just like really difficult and really awful, and like that's the general mindset, right? Like everyone. Where basketball, ball going hoop. Football, you get ball in end zone. Like
I agree.
The simplicity of them and watching athleticism is a lot easier to get into, and you can see the camaraderie of the teams and all this and that. It's a much more accessible vector than gaming.
Absolutely.
Gaming is something that Dad and me and Gamer Joe can go and do and participate in. And like this is why not all games become esports.
Oh no, I agree.
Because like a great example of this is Overwatch, right?
Right.
Overwatch never really made it as an esport because people would rather just go play Overwatch.
Right.
At the end of the day, that's kind of what happened. Like there wasn't anything like it's when you watch sports, you can see people. And that's why Dota and Counter-Strike do so well. And League of Legends do so well. Is because a lot of times you have like face cams on the players, or there's something set aside where like a venue, right? Like the TIs and the majors and stuff and all those things do very well.
Yep.
Because you get to see the people.
Right.
And if you can't relate it to people, then you're not poaching, you know, non-gamer Bob off of his couch from football.
Okay, to be fair, I don't think the esports and the other types of gamers, professional gaming, is poaching anybody. I think that things like it's a culture shift. There are more gamers than there are. I mean, it's like when you say sitting around watching TV and watching NFL Sunday football, you know, I mean, there's a few families that still do that, but I know a lot of families that just don't do that anymore. It's whether like in our state, whether you're being blacked out because there's not enough people to fill the stadium, so they black it out and you have to go fill the stadium before they'll open it up to the news channels, or it's just a dying generation thing. Or, you know, there's the whole money thing too, you know, when you're charging, you know, the NFL package is hundreds of dollars or whatever it is now to watch football, and you can watch esports basically for free, and you can play in esports for free. Like anybody can compete, whether you're going to get into the money or not, you know. I just think it's a culture shift, and I think the generation of kids that are growing up now aren't as invested in the big sports, the big professional sports, and it's going more towards the YouTuber, the esports, the content creator type of professional gamer, honestly, in my humble opinion. I could be wrong.
No, and so there's a really interesting parallel. I don't know how much you know about like the history of like, let's say, baseball.
Right.
But the history of baseball and the history of the early football leagues and
I was there.
All these other things. Okay.
No, I mean,
like I'm talking like old.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, I'm getting there.
Was, you know, and you still have this some with the amateur. Like baseball's a kind of an anomaly because they have the minor leagues.
Yeah.
And that's the parallel I like to draw for like what you're talking about
right.
and why I think you can see that like the esports and professional gaming has kind of come to a forefront is because it is accessible to the average.
Yeah, accessible to everybody who wants
average
to do
person.
It.
However, it will not take off until, and here's the big boogeyman in the room,
right.
until advertisings begin to back it.
Right.
Because that's ultimately what provides almost all of the monetary value in the system, in the closed system of sports,
Right.
of professional
Right.
sports, is advertising.
I mean,
And that's why stadiums have to charge so much,
right.
because they're not getting any chunk of that, and they still
Right.
have to keep all their stuff open. That's why managers of sports teams, like, they're like, you know, the official sponsor of this team. You
Right,
know, like,
right.
there's a lot of money. That's
Oh
most
yeah,
of the
no,
money.
there's a lot of money involved
Because
for sure.
merch gets you there, kind of, but
Right.
not nearly as much as advertising.
Oh right, no,
The-
absolutely.
The cost of selling, the cost of trying to sell people things, is the driving factor behind professionalism in sports nowadays.
Right.
It really is.
No,
Like,
it is, and I mean exactly, and I still think it goes back to that culture change. It's I don't want it to go because I mean I don't watch as much sports as I used to. I think American baseball, American football. I will use American in those words because football's different in other countries.
Yeah.
I think that it's just part of who we are as a country, and I don't think that it's ever going to go gone because you have college level stuff that's unbelievable. But I think with this subject, the professional gamer per se is coming to a front, and I might be wrong. I've been wrong before, but it's every corner and every game. It seems like comes out with a way to. At least the games that are really getting in the forefront. And you can see this in Call of Duties and Battlefields, and they're really trying hard to make it so it's Twitch integratable, Discord integratable, mass market integratable, so you can have hundreds of people watching you play. You can record, Xboxes record how many hours before? I mean, you could clip it. Twitch, you can do the same thing. You can make clips. I think, to me, a professional gamer in this instance is literally somebody, like you said earlier, who makes, or at least tempting to make a living off of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's an analogy to be drawn with music. Not every professional musician is selling out stadiums.
Right.
A lot of people can make their living being a professional musician by just doing a small circuit, like playing.
So
within a
we
few
can agree
states.
that a professional gamer is essentially somebody that, at least in our case,
is making the attempt to make a living. Like,
Fair
this is
enough.
their full-time job. Like, that, to me, that's a professional.
Yep.
There is also the definition of a professional of someone who is so skilled at something
Oh,
that
absolutely.
they can pass on the knowledge.
Yep.
But I think the heart of what we were trying to discuss today is that third definition.
Yeah.
And just to reiterate that.
Yep. No, absolutely. And so, go ahead.
I do want to talk a little bit about the shift you were talking about. So with sports, you had like major network or like one governing body.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the American Football League too many times because we might get struck down.
You're right.
So we'll use MLB as the example, Major League Baseball.
Are we National League or American League?
It doesn't matter. I don't really care. They're the same thing at this point.
I know.
I got sidetracked there.
You were talking about governing bodies.
Yeah. So the thing with esports is the governing body isn't kind of all encompassing.
Right.
So you have people that play Dota, you have people that play League of Legends, you have people that play Counter-Strike.
Right.
And the pools and the money that is going out to these players to be distributed is peanuts compared to what
for sure.
sports do. And so what ends up happening is, it's like less than 1% of all the people that play that sport are going to be professionals at it. I mean, look at the NBA is a great example.
Right.
Like, there's a bench warmer in the NBA who sits on the bench all game and comes out every once in a while. He's a relief player, right? But he might be the worst player in the NBA, but that makes him the 400th best player in the world.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, no, of course.
like, and there's this skewed idea in our brains of like how good they are at their craft,
All right, for sure.
that they can make a living off of it,
Yep.
right? And so there was always this like thing you're told that like you could be the best, you could be a professional at this, you could do this, you could do this. And I think the allure is that in gaming, you can find a niche game and try to make a living at it. But I will say I've been watching like esports since it's become a thing, more or less.
Right.
And I watch a lot of it,
Yeah,
a lot of different
absolutely.
stuff. The money's drying up.
Right.
Like Dota is a great example of the metric of like the money drying up.
Right.
Dota still sells a lot, but they're not crowdfunding anymore for their major tournaments.
Right.
Valve still puts up its prize pool and stuff like that, but like they changed the way that they did gaming. They did esports. Valve did an experiment back in like 2019, I think it was 2018, and they just kind of went Wild West and let anybody host a major. You had to like kind of bid to get it or whatever, and it ended up working out really well for Valve.
Right.
And what ended up happening was you had like ESL Gaming and a couple of the other major like esports
Right.
conglomerates, I want to call them, more or less, weaseling out all the smaller guys.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
And so you're kind of getting this centralized thing going on now.
Right.
This major governing body, more or less. And like ESL was running Counter-Strike tournaments. They were running Dota tournaments. They were running insert game here. There was probably an ESL event for it.
Right.
But at the end of the day, what ended up happening is the money kind of dried up. Like, because they just weren't getting advertised. They're trying to find relevant advertising.
Right. And
For
it goes back to that, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's like, it was really funny because like Mercedes-Benz started advertising, right? And like all these different things. It's like, you know, I played Dota in, you know, I'm a 20-year-old college student playing Dota on my college campus in my dorm. I can't afford to eat ramen.
Right.
And you're going to advertise a Mercedes. Like, it's this weird disconnect.
Right.
Of like, what do you advertise? Like, and the things that people are interested in buying is just like, gamers don't want anything other than to play games.
Right.
And
yeah, no, there's definitely going to be a long transition phase for sure.
And so like, I guess I'm kind of skeptical that it'll take over. And I've been on this thing the whole time.
Yep. No, absolutely.
Because just from watching it, I've kind of seen the bottom, the investors go and be like, oh yeah, this is going to be big. This is going to be big.
Right.
And I've been, for the past 10 years, I've been hearing this is the big thing. This is the big thing. This is the big, and failing to see it.
Right.
Like, it's there. It's doing its thing.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I don't know if it's sustainable.
Well, I'm on another mindset of that, of course. And the reason being is I don't think esports is the definition of a professional gamer, in my humble opinion. It's definitely a type of professional gamer. I think influencers that influence video games, I use back in the day L.A.G.S, the Minecraft freaks that I mean, they put Minecraft at a whole new level. Not that Minecraft wasn't doing just fine on its own.
Or like Ninja with Fortnite is another
Ninja
example.
with Fortnite is another example.
A modern example,
You know,
I suppose.
Dr. Disrespect, Call of Duty.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all things that that are taking a chunk out of a pie that's limited. Obviously, there's a limit. Like you said, you go back to the advertising, and Mercedes-Benz or Pepsi or Coke or whoever is only going to spend. They have a budget.
Yeah.
This budget is so big. And right now, the biggest thing is these other non-esports, non-hobby type gaming professionals are taking a huge pot. All it's going to take, though, in my opinion, is one company to say, hey, we're going to offer you a better deal for a better price than the NFL can or the NBA and has it happened yet? No. It's coming in little waves. And big companies like NVIDIA have kind of got into it a little bit. AMD, Intel, even Kabold Press. I mean, and that's kind of moving on to the next version of professional gamer. We have the esports, but then we also have the YouTuber.
The influencer.
Yeah, the influencer. You you Splattercat. He's a fairly good example that plays a new game almost every single day. and uploads a new video and makes a dang good living at it.
And see, like, I
I
guess
would assume.
this is kind of where, like, I feel like I don't want to just argue semantics, but like a great example of this is like when I say a professional football player, right? You know that I'm not talking about an analyst.
Right.
You know that I'm not talking about someone who reports on a game or can identify a game or can share information, a communicator of the game.
Right.
And that's kind of like where I'm like, the influencers and the people that play these games, you know, professional has many definitions, and yeah, they might be making their living at it, but are they a professional gamer or are they a professional communicator?
Right.
Like the influencer thing,
Yeah.
right?
No, I agree.
And so like, I don't want to just split hairs and argue semantics, but
I don't feel like I'm arguing at all.
they're not, in my opinion, they're not a professional gamer. They're a professional content creator.
Hence the name
They're
of the podcast. What is a professional gamer?
Entertainer.
Yes.
And that's ultimately what they're trying to do.
Right. But
Is,
they're doing it by how?
I mean, again, like at the end of the day, you don't call the analyst of the football game a professional football player. You
Right.
don't. He's not. He doesn't
Right.
go out on the
Well,
field. He doesn't play the game at a competitive level.
The football player could be also an entertainer too.
I mean, true,
mean-
but by that definition, but he's entertaining by participating in the actual event.
Yep.
I mean, that's a good argument, though, like that the football player isn't entertaining,
I mean,
and they are.
It goes back to the professional wrestling.
Exactly. It's
Entertainment, but it's still a lot of athleticism. It's still
exactly.
a sport.
The
And
athletics
think-
they're doing is.
I think that's
yeah.
that's where I wanted this conversation to kind of go, and that's where
Okay.
I've been kind of trying to steer it to. Is I don't really have an opinion one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that we're seeing a shift. Is this what we call professional gaming today? In when you get old, to my age, say another 30 years or whatever, 20
Yeah.
years, is my grandchildren like are they going to be going on their job application is how good they play a video game or how good they play a war game or how good I obviously war games and tabletop role playing games are probably still a ways out before they become mainstream,
I think they will.
but
I think their vector is much more likely to approach from entertainment.
oh, absolutely.
Because I know for a fact a lot of those companies that run those things will be very controlling and very selective of their advertising.
Oh, absolutely.
The other thing, and not to backtrack a little bit, but I just kind of thought about this now.
Uh-oh.
One of the major issues with advertising is you need the data collection to understand if your advertising is effective.
Right.
What is one thing that people who spend a lot of time on their computer and gamers are very angry about all the time?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
People collecting their data or
Yep.
people wanting to access to their kernels or
Well,
whatever.
I think
like there's a lot of things.
Right.
Like you are trying to sell to the group of people who is very superstitious about the way that you sell
Yep.
things with your data collection and your analytics.
I think ultimately that what we call now a professional gamer, football players, basketball players, I mean, that's essentially what they are, to what we call a professional gamer 20, 30 years from now is going to be completely different. I honestly think it will be. I'm not saying football's going anywhere because it's not. Baseball's not going anywhere. You know, it's like Coke's not going anywhere. Pepsi couldn't dethrone Coke. Coke's not going anywhere. Mountain Dew can't dethrone Coke. I mean, they'll still be there. I just think our whole culture is going to switch our ideas. And a professional gamer literally could be just that guy that is a YouTuber who plays games. I mean, that might be the way we view it. And I think that might be the way we're going. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that, yeah, I'm more along the lines of, you know, hey, a professional gamer is like a game. What's a game? So you got to get back to that. Okay, it's a game, something you play, something you can play competitively. Can Splattercat play competitively in a doing his preview entertainment videos? No, it's not competitive at all. But with the way our generations are getting there, they're just calling that guy a gamer, right? And so that was my idea behind the topic today is what are we going to call a professional gamer in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now? What is it today? What was it 20 years ago? You know, that wasn't even a term 20 years ago.
So like, I guess the way I look at not the argument, but like to play devil's advocate yet again.
Yep.
A guy that shoots guns isn't inherently a soldier.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely not.
You know, so a guy who plays games isn't inherently a professional gamer, and especially in the case of like the people that are doing variety games,
right,
where they're playing a ton of different games. I guess, yeah, in a general sense, they're a gamer, but are they ever achieving professional level at? You know, it's like the whole idea in music of being very good at an instrument, being professional at an instrument, or
right,
being very good as a musician.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of maybe it's just our terminology, like you said, hasn't really evolved
I
yet.
absolutely 100% agree.
It's probably that the terminology hasn't caught up.
Right.
There needs to be some sort of.
We're in a really weird area.
And I wanted to mention earlier, this is going to be a weird analogy to draw, but it has evolved.
Oh yeah.
Already.
Oh, absolutely.
Prior to even professional sports.
Right.
Because if you go back to the Wild West and like the old school, you know, like I think of like people walking in and playing cards. Like you hear the myth of like the rambling gambler.
Right.
Like Kenny Rogers, the gambler.
Right.
You know, like that was a profession.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Being a gambler was a profession. Learning how to play games.
Yep.
Especially like poker, you know, as long as there was some skill or you know how to manipulate the chance,
right?
You could be a professional gambler.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
And you know how much of that is myth of, you know, just like someone who had money already and like just kind of wasted their time, versus someone who became subsistence on.
Well, you know, you mentioned even earlier in this podcast about the poker players, the World Series of Poker. Lots of those guys did not start out wealthy. Some of them did.
Yeah.
Some started out with a big old fat checkbook and just did it because it was fun.
Yeah.
There was a few that worked their way up nickel and diamond, and now they're wealthy people. Like they go in there to play and
you know, that kind of goes into the secondary part of the third definition of like that is usually viewed as like a pastime.
Yep.
So it's this idea of like, you know, gambling, playing poker was a pastime.
Yep.
Just add money and make it interesting.
Yeah.
Some person somewhere along the line said, "Oh, I'm really good at this.
Right.
I could probably make money off of this," which naturally becomes I could do this for a living.
Right.
And that's the evolution, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like it will evolve over time, and maybe it's just a terminology.
I think it's 100% terminology, and I think we're at a really weird stage because we're hitting things that you couldn't make money at in the entire history. Now we're making money at. Of course, we didn't have technology like we do now back, 50 years ago or even 25 years ago for that matter. And, now there's people making money by playing D&D, like Critical Role.
So,
and yes, they're entertainers. Are they professional? I mean, that's what it comes down to.
For one, they're professional voice actors. Almost
yep.
all of them
they are
professional voice actors.
Or they've been in movies or TV or whatever.
Voice acting is, again, acting.
Yep.
And now, if you have a professional actor, it kind of goes into the same... This is going to be a weird analogy. I'm going to get crucified for this, but it's like professional wrestling.
Right.
Professional, like, Critical Role is essentially professional wrestling. You're kind of doing the thing, but you're not really doing the thing. You're doing it for show.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's the essence of why you sit down to play. And I know there will be some diehard Critical Role fans like, yeah, but they're invested in the story. They love it. They're having fun. Great. Cool. Some of the wrestlers are too.
Yeah. Oh no. Oh no. Yeah. Them guys don't wrestle like.
And I don't want to like play down that it's like not important or it's not art or it's not good or anything like that.
It's just.
But the terminology.
Yeah. It all comes down to terminology. Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, if you call yourself something, who gives a shit, right? Like, it doesn't matter. But when you're trying to describe something and we're trying to have a discussion on like what is this question, that's the whole point of this, right?
Yeah.
It's like
absolutely.
It's like.
Is it people to have the conversation going?
Push glasses up. Actually, it's not because it's.
Yeah, no, I think that was. Yeah, no, that's why I want to talk about this today. Is I think that if nothing else comes out of this podcast, there's a lot of stuff that people could talk about in it, and stuff that is brought up once in a while during, stuff that I've watched over the years and watched even the people I watch playing video games. Sometimes they talk about it. They don't mention this professional gamer. They do mention, am I a professional? Am I? Is this what I'm doing for a living? Am I now a professional in this industry? I mean, what is it? I who knows? And since I play games, what is that called? Is that a professional entertainer? Is it a professional gamer? Is it what?
And imposter syndrome's a real thing too. You're like, well,
Yeah.
am I? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, if people say I am, then I am, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly. No.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic. You should comment. Let us know what you guys think.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be interesting to know.
We'd love to hear it. Anything else you want to cover on that?
No, that's kind of where I was going with it. I just want,
it's just kind of an open-ended conversation.
It is,
right?
and I know that there's other parts of the world that do it better than we do here in the States.
Oh yeah,
And I
it's
think
treated seriously
in Korea,
in Korea,
and Japan,
even in Scandinavian countries too. And
they take the stuff a little more serious. There's a little more money involved over there.
Yeah.
Think about how long StarCraft tournament's been going on.
And the other thing too is they have that system in place for payouts in minor leagues.
Yep.
Right, you can win a small time tournament, and you could do that in a lot of the games. Like StarCraft had that, Dota has that. There's these minor circuits, right. So I guess I don't want to be all doom and gloom.
No,
there's light at the end of the tunnel. You could be a pro gamer.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
People have done it. The highest earning guy, No Tail in Dota, is a multimillionaire.
Right.
It's doable.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, no, I think that was the whole goal of this topic, was not to make it a controversial thing, but it's a thing that I've noticed over my years that's starting to slowly, the shift is coming, and ultimately to end this up, it's going to come back to money. You and I had this conversation in private about money, how advertising controls the world.
Yep.
And ultimately, someone's going to have to come up with the idea. And if you're a company and you're trying to figure this out and you crack it, you're gonna be the next thing.
And people have come at it from all sorts of different vectors.
Yeah. So if you can come up with it, and you can come up with a way to break the big advertisers and make them come and be on your side, you're going to be in the money. That's for sure.
Yep. All right. Well, catch you guys in the next one.
Later.